Drunk Trump-hating senator questions CIA and NSA directors, gets busted big time by Rebecca DeCirio, Politics US News for MadWorldNews.com. Trump-hating Senator Jack Reed, the ranking member of Armed Services Committee, returned from a lunch break totally inebriated and insisted on questioning the CIA and NSA directors. He slurred his words and went on a bizarre tirade about wacky Russian conspiracy theories, clearly suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, as those present try not to laugh out loud. Well, after enduring his drunkenness for a few minutes, Senator Reed got busted big time. Trump derangement syndrome is bad enough, but suffering from TDS and being drunk is horrible. That is exactly what happened to Democratic Senator Jack Reed, who had clearly indulged in a liquid lunch, then refused to stand down when it came time for him to question all the top intelligence community directors. Isn't that nice? Reed was on a mission, and that mission was to get to the bottom of the Russian allegedly taking over our democracy and making Donald Trump our president. As the conservative Treehouse reports, Senator Jack Reed, ranking member of Armed Services Committee, began his midday slurration with a resist we much, quote, effort to continue the vast White House Russian conspiracy narrative. They added he slowly morphed into a weirdly sounding, intoxicated demand for the NSA, CIA, and intelligence officers to give him specific examples of their efforts to combat quantum cyber intelligence operations. Eventually, ODNI Dan Coats grabbed the wheel and stopped Senator Reed from going full Chappaquiddick. Dan Coats is President Donald Trump's Director of National Intelligence, and as Reed started rambling about the Manhattan operation, quote, everyone present knew this guy was close to being escorted out by security. In case you don't know, the Manhattan Project was the World War II name for the secret mission for scientists to create the first nuclear weapons. You may agree or disagree, but collecting intellifinch and then acting on it are two different things, slurs Reed while holding up the peace sign. Later, at about the 6:10 mark in the video, he gets on a drunken roll about the Chinese and AI, artificial intelligence. Then Coates tries to rescue him by saying they can't talk about this in an open setting, which makes Reed start laughing. Finally, at 6:25 in the video, Reed gets back on his obsessive thoughts, slurring some more, and you can see Senator Kamala Harris trying not to laugh, as Senator Joe Manchin, to her left, cannot contain himself. Below is the almost 7-minute video of Senator Reed's questioning session. Let's just take a quick, you can hear him slurring, and then we'll get to the 22 mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for being late. We had a simultaneous hearing in the Armed Services Committee on SOCOM. But all morning, gentlemen, we've heard the story of Russia influencing our campaigns and indeed in the current campaign for the midterms. So let me begin with Mr. Ray and say, has the President directed you and your agency to take specific actions to confront and blunt Russian influence activities that are ongoing?
We're taking a lot of specific efforts to blunt Russian
directed by the President?
Not as specifically directed by the President.
Okay. Director Pompeo, have you received a specific presidential direction to take steps to disrupt these activities?
You can hear him.
Could you put it on?
Sorry. I'm not sure how specific. I mean, the President's made very clear we have an obligation from our perspective, from the foreign intelligence perspective, to do everything we can to make sure that there's a deep and thorough understanding of every threat, including threats from Russia.
But as he singled out the Russian threat, which appears to be critical to this election coming up. I know there are threats from many different vectors, but have you received a specific threat, i.e. it's very important to him to get this done correctly?
Yeah, I think the president's been very clear that he has asked our agency to cooperate with each of the investigations that's ongoing and do everything we can to ensure that we thoroughly understand this potential threat.
Director Coates, have you received a specific directive to take specific steps to disrupt and understand first and then disrupt Russian activities directed at our elections in 2018?
I would echo what Director Pompeo just said. We work together on this throughout the agency. Has full understanding that we are to provide whatever intelligence is relevant and make sure that that is passed on to our policymakers, including the President.
Passing on relevant intelligence is not actively disrupting the operations of an opponent. Do you agree?
No, we pass it on and they make the decisions of how to implement it.
As the Director of Intelligence for AI and quantum computing, where is our national Manhattan program for AI and quantum computing that will match the Chinese? Director Coates, you seem to be anxious to answer that, and I'll let you do that.
Well, I think there are some things that we have to talk about in classified setting here. We're treading a very narrow line here relative to discussing this in an open meeting.
I don't want to tread that line, but we do have to recognize that, again, the Chinese activity to appropriate our intellectual property is obvious. They're generating their own intellectual property at a rate that could be disruptive, and we are not matching them. Again, this Manhattan analogy might be a little bit out of date, but when we saw the potential effects of a scientific development back in the 40s, we spared no expense so that we would get it first before our opponents. The Chinese seem to be making that type of commitment very publicly. Billions of dollars that they've said publicly. They have a plan and they're working the plan.
And we provide that information to the extent that we can collect that information, but just like the Manhattan Project, we don't openly share what steps that we're taking to address it.
I respect that. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, sir.
Well, as you can see, he's drunk, so CTH reports it's doubtful you can find any more succinct examples of TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, than a seemingly inebriated Democrat senator asking the aggregate intelligence apparatus during a public session of Congress to give specific details of U.S. covert intelligence efforts to thwart Russian, Chinese, and North Korean cyber warfare. Well, Americans who were watching this debacle are extremely upset that Reid, who has been nothing but a thorn in Trump's side, had the audacity to show up drunk to a public intel hearing, then start to ramble on about potentially classified information. On Reid's webpage, he writes, President Trump seems to have a difficult relationship with the truth, and this type of reckless rhetoric undermines both his credibility and U.S. national security. Reid continues, it's deeply disturbing that the President of the United States continues to trust the world of Vladimir Putin over the unanimous judgment of the U.S. intelligence agencies. Reid adds that is a slap in the face of the brave men and women who risk their lives to gather intelligence and defend our nation. As we continue to learn more about President Trump's ties to Russia and his campaign's political ties to the Kremlin, the dark red cloud hovering over this administration grows more ominous. So you can see that he is clearly on the side of the deep state and has no problem propping up their lies and crimes. Patriots weighed in on Senator Jack Reed's drunken session before the intel community. This guy is the top-ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, and how easily could he be compromised? You think? What the hell? Why am I not seeing this on tonight's news? This guy was drunk, butt drunk, and from the looks on Dan Coates' face, was talking about things that should not be talked about in a public forum, tweets Sonja. Exactly. We agree. If this was a GOP senator who supports Trump, this would be all over the news. Absolutely. Twitter user Unringing the Bell tweeted, "I'd like to hear him say mutual again. Laugh my, what off. This guy is an embarrassment. Wow, wonder where he hides the flask." Others wanted to know why the other Trump hater, Kamala Harris, sitting right next to Reid, didn't stop him and then turn him in. These Democrats are all a bunch of rats. There are so many responses to Reid's drunk fest on Capitol Hill from Americans who are at first laughing since it proves the Democrats are a bunch of inept Looney Tunes, but then most react with anger. So Reid did not get away with this. There's no doubt that patriots will be passing around this information, and he should have to step down. This is what happens to the Democrats who are towing the line of the fake Trump-Russia investigation. They all know it's a pile of BS, but none of them are brave enough, nor do they have the character, morals, or ethics to do the right thing. So they get drunk at noon and probably keep drinking the rest of the day. Thank God these Democrats aren't in charge of anything in Washington, D.C. We need to keep it that way. Absolutely. I mean, isn't that disgraceful? You could hear him slurring his words and asking top secret information in a public forum. I mean, it's just a disaster waiting to happen with this guy. I mean, you gotta be kidding. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.